Welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about last night's elections and what they might mean for independent voters across the country, as we see that independents who previously might have been voting left and right have voted for Democrats in overwhelming numbers in last evening's elections, from Wisconsin to Florida, and in many special elections we have seen over the past 3 months. The elections last night served as a reckoning point for Donald Trump and his administration as they look to the way the national public views many of the decisions that the White House is putting out. Whether it's tariffs or Donald Trump in general, the American public has soured on the incumbent president in comparison to where they were before. Today marks the first time on the Silver Bulletin, which is Nate Silver's website, a tracker that I use since the unfortunate closing of FiveThirtyEight here, the first time ever that Donald Trump's disapproval rating in this term has reached a majority point, that the majority of the nation now disapproves of the job that Donald Trump is doing, while just roughly 47% approve of his handling of the office of President of the United States. And I do this to point out that Trump's approval rating has been on a decline since his first day in office, when he started out at a net positive of roughly 12 points across the country. Eventually, that lead was always going to be diminished, but at the rate it has been far from impressive for Donald Trump, especially given his very high standing point. In fact, you can see that in comparison to where he was in 2017, if FiveThirtyEight was still up, I would show you the tracker, but you can find it on the Wayback Machine. You can find this data online. You'll see that the way that Donald Trump's approval rating trended downward in his first term is nearly exactly at the same rate he is trending downward today. But that's not the point of this video. That's context that's necessary in understanding the rest of this video. But what I am looking at today are the results in Florida House District 6 and Florida House District 1, in which we see here massive improvements for the Democratic Party for the first time in states like this in a very long time. One thing that I love about the New York Times website, I'm not sure if you agree with me on this, but one thing that I really love about the New York Times website is their detailed election maps. And something that I found to be quite interesting is that it really does show the extent of the swing that Democrats saw last evening. We can see here in Florida, especially in this part of Florida, some very Republican counties that were largely integral in electing Matt Gaetz term after term after term from Florida's 1st district. But now they've elected a new Republican. But looking at the counties here, the county map here shows a blue county. Well, why do I point that out? Why does that matter? Well, the Democrat winning here by 3 points stands in direct contrast with Trump winning this county, the exact one, the same one, by 19.5% in the last election. And I continue to point it out to say that the shift in performance for the Republicans in Florida in the last election, Florida's 1st district, Matt Gaetz won by 32.1 against the same exact Democrat. Fast forward to 5 months later, the Democrats lose it by under 15. Florida 6th is a similar story. Randy Fine, Josh Wheel, 2 sets of candidates that took this race, was much more nationalized than Florida's 1st. A lot of money on this race on the Democratic side, and clearly to their benefit, because Randy Fine won the race, sure, by 14 points, impressive in a normal election. But as a point of comparison, this 6th district went to Waltz, who, yes, the same Waltz that is in a lot of the articles you're reading today. Don't check Signal while you're watching this video. Florida's 6th district here, 33-point margin for him in his last House race. What is it now for Republicans? Down to just 14. Again, comparisons, 32, right, for the Republicans, 33, sorry, and 32, reduced to less than 15. And based on where Trump was, he actually did better than both of these candidates in these races. And so all of this is really coming into my mind, and I'm asking, why is this happening, right? Well, obviously we know Republicans have a turnout problem, but that's something we talked about yesterday, why the results were pouring in. And turnout matters, right? Republicans need higher turnout if they want to win elections, X, Y, and Z. But there is something more underlying in these performances in Florida. And don't even get me started about Wisconsin, the massive shifts from 2024 and a 10-point victory, decisive victory for Democrats in the state. But looking at Florida in particular, what is really interesting, because Wisconsin doesn't track for party affiliation the same way Florida does, though. And what Florida provides us is that the early turnout in Florida's 6th district, in Florida's 1st district, is very different than where it was before. Let's look. In the overall turnout race, Republicans did win in terms of turning out more voters to the ballot box. But it also just so happens to be that the county and these districts themselves are overwhelmingly more conservative. But look at these early turnout numbers. The 6th district is a great example of where you can see a lot of this persuasion really come through. Early turnout, Republican plus 25. This time, Republican plus 9. Election day turnout, though, a bit flipped. Plus 29 in November, but plus 35 today. The combined turnout from November was Republican plus 26. The combined turnout in last night's election was Republican plus 21. Well, the election result in November was Republican plus 30. The GOP had won the district by 30 percentage points. What was the result this time around? Republicans won it by just 14. A 16-point shift that was only accounted for in a combined turnout decrease of 5 points. Meaning, without a doubt, there were independent registered voters that voted blue, brought the margin down, and turned up and turned out for the Democratic contenders in an overwhelmingly conservative district, in that the party ID and the party lead here did not, in fact, underperform what the actual result was, which is standard in Florida, that the combined turnout will often be in a position on par with Republican performance, or in some cases actually underestimating Republican support, as it did in the 6th district in 2024. What should have been Republican plus 26 was Republican plus 30. This time, consistent underperformances. Same story being told in the 1st district that shows persuasive efforts working on independence. Same things here. The combined turnout showed there should be a 10-point difference between November and April. But in fact, there was not only a 10-point difference, double it, then add 2 and give it to the next person, right? Republican plus 37 reduced down to Republican plus 15. A 22-point shift. It's not great, right? Not great for a party. A party that is still maintaining a massive combined turnout advantage. But a turnout advantage doesn't tell the full story. And you have to ask why. Well, the bar graphs actually explain it. Again, good feature about the New York Times. They do a good job. Let me not, continue guessing up this publication, because the focus of this should be on the bar graphs here and what we're talking about. So let's get to it. The results were Republicans plus 14. The turnout by party registration said Republicans would be at baseline 53, which meant some independents voted for the Republican Party. But the overwhelming majority voted blue. Take a look at that. Same thing when it comes down to the next race. When we're taking a look here, I guess they're not going to show us here, but when we're taking a look, I don't know why Wisconsin just popped up, the turnout by party registration. I don't know why it's not showing me the point of comparison. Either way, this displays it all. And it can be inferred by the fact that Republicans don't make up, 57% of registered voters in the district at all times, right? Just because there's a Republican plus 5 turnout advantage in a battleground state doesn't mean that no one's a registered independent. There is a huge chunk of this nation, in fact, Gallup can show you the recent numbers, where there's a substantive portion of the public that self-identifies as independent. And it's interesting because they very often have opinions. They very often do vote for the same type of Democrat, same type of Republican, but again, it is about persuasion. That Democrats could be at a turnout number of 31%, yet somehow win 12% more of the vote. Republicans, in contrast, are only winning 4% more of the vote compared to their baseline numbers. Interesting at the bare minimum. A lot of this, I think, has to do with Trump and the way that people view him and the way that they view Elon Musk. And we're seeing it in turnout and in election after election. These are all the special elections that have taken place since Trump was elected. It's a whole lot more blue than there is red, and there's a reason for that. Donald Trump is a driving force, and so is Elon Musk, both driving forces for Democrats to turn out in elections that could spell serious trouble for the Republican Party moving forward. And it will be very interesting to watch it unfold in this year, in next year, in the year after, and potentially the 2028 presidential election. Because as of now, Trump is not doing his party any favors. Certainly not electorally, maybe legislatively, and maybe from the executive. But in terms of electoral repercussions, they're here. And it looks like they're here to stay. And as Trump's approval gets worse, so will the Republican Party's election results, which explains why they pulled Elise Stefanik, which explains why they're so terrified about future elections, which is why they're probably going to just rush $20 million to their governor's race in New Jersey and Virginia, because they're worried. Because the GOP, for the first time in a long time since that election, has finally felt the full force of Democratic resistance. And Democrats, who I think felt very demoralized and without party leadership and without any direction as to where they go, are starting to feel it come back. And it comes out of Florida, it comes out of Wisconsin, and given there are many more elections this year and next, it'll be very interesting to watch it unfold in real time, and we'll be here to cover it. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2025 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.